ask you to turn on your videos for one activity, but you don't have to do it before that, although I like when everyone is on video too, but no pressure. So yeah, let's wait for like 1 minute. Yeah, 1 more minute and then we can get started. Thank you guys for joining, by the way. Okay, it has been 2 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Can you guys see the screen okay? You can just like unmute yourself and say yes, or just like put a thumbs up in the chat. Can you see the presentation? No? Oh no, okay, thank you for saying that. Okay, no, yes, yes. Let me try sharing again. Okay. Right now, Chrome tab, UX Design Basics. Okay, you should be able to see it now. If you can't, please let me know. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So yeah, just gonna go ahead and get started. So we have an hour today, and part of that is going to be me kind of talking about some UX design basics, and then the rest of it is going to be you guys doing some activities and some kind of introductory UX kind of exercises. So it should be pretty fun. Cool. So basically what we're going to do for the next hour, so we're going to do introductions. We're going to do a quick, fun exercise. We're then going to go over design thinking and the design thinking process. So I'm basically just going to talk to you about the process that I go through when I design things. We're going to do another activity, and then we are going to wrap up. And if any point, if you guys have any questions or want to like jump in and add something, feel free to ask any questions on the chat, or like just unmute yourself and go for it. That's fine too. Cool. So I thought I would start with a little bit of introduction about me and kind of, I guess, why you guys can trust me about the information I'm giving you. So my name is Rishma. I am a UX designer, an inclusive designer, and I am the lead UX designer at Mentra, which is a startup that's building a platform for autistic job seekers to make it easier for them to find positions that they really want. And I recently graduated from Georgia Tech with a degree, a master's degree in human-computer interaction. And as I said before, I'm an inclusive design advocate. So basically that means I'm designing for accessibility from the moment I start my creative process and my design process. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, and hopefully it will be helpful for you too. And otherwise, when I'm not designing, I like doing embroidery, love tattoos, and I'm also a mod for Subtle Asian Cooking, if any of you are part of that on Facebook. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And then these are some of the things that I have designed in the past. So those 3 desktop screens you see over there are some screens for Mentra. And then those 2 little mobile screens are for a playlist sharing app that I designed for one of my classes. So that's just some of my work. Okay, and now I hope you guys don't hate me for this. So I want you guys to do introductions as well. So we can just go down the list, or you guys can just shout it out, and just tell the group, what's your name? What do you do? What's your goal for this hackathon? And then what would you like to get out of this UI UX basics workshop? So anyone can go first, and just unmute yourself or put yourself on video and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Trisha Agarwal. I'm a high school senior. Right now I've been really into front-end development and actually UI UX design. And for this hackathon, I'm going to be building an app for Fair Opportunity Project. And I just hope to become a better UI UX designer.
Cool. I love that. Someone else go, anyone. Or I'm going to go down the list of names alphabetically. Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Pavel. I just want to get better at user experience design, which will be quite fun to learn. Something I never touched on before. So yeah, that's it.
Cool, thank you.
Hello, I'm Greg. I'm a first engineering student. I just wanted to get some more experience with coding and UX.
Awesome. Cool, thank you. Okay, if other people are feeling shy, that's okay. And we will move on. So cool, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And I hope that this is a good kind of introduction to UX design and the whole design process, and that it can help you out with what you're building at the hackathon over the next few days. Cool. So now we're going to do a quick introductory activity, and this is the one that's going to require you guys to turn your video on, but I don't need to see your face. So basically what's going to happen is I want you guys to take 3 minutes and just on a piece of paper, it can be a napkin, it can be a receipt, it doesn't have to be nice, draw the steps that you take to make a piece of toast. And I'm going to do it too. And we're going to take 3 minutes, and then we are all going to share our drawings on our cameras, if possible. So I guess I'm going to start the timer, and I'll explain why we do this after we share. Okay, so I'm setting a timer on my phone right now. So let's get started. And you don't have to worry about your artistic ability. I myself am not an amazing artist, so we just want to be fast and we want to get it done. Okay, we have 1:30 left, so we're halfway through time. 20 seconds, and then I will ask you guys to share what you drew. Okay, cool. So that was 3 minutes, and I am going to stop presenting for a second, and then I'm going to share mine. And if you guys could just turn on your cameras and hold your stuff up, that would be awesome. So let's see what we did. This is mine. Yay, I love it. Thank you for sharing it. Anyone else? Can you turn your camera on? Nice. I love that. Other people? Oh, I love it. Cool, cool, cool. Anyone else? If you guys also, I kind of want to take a picture of all of us with our little pictures up. So I'm going to ask you all to turn it on again in like 20 seconds. Does anyone else want to share theirs? Okay, never mind. Could we, the people that did share, could you turn on your cameras again so I can take a picture real fast? Just for fun. Sorry. Yay. Thank you. Amazing. Okay, cool. So if you guys could see, even in this simple task, there's so much variation for how people do things, right? So some of the people that shared had similar steps. Mine was very long. So essentially the reason that I asked you guys to do that was because even when we do this really simple task like making toast, you can't always assume that people are going to make toast the same way that you make toast. And that's kind of the basis of the user-centered design process or the design thinking process. And this is the approach that you should be taking when you're designing something. So let's take this toast example. Say we were designing a toaster. If I just went ahead and used my drawing for making a toaster, you guys probably wouldn't be able to use that well. And so when we're designing anything, we want to understand our users before we even put the pen to the paper. And we want to talk to them during the design process so that we can create a harmonious, frictionless, easy, and even enjoyable experience for whatever we design. And especially more so when you're designing for accessibility. And if someone has a different ability than you, you really want to get to know how they do things before you can design something for them. And so how do we keep our users at the center of our design process? And luckily, there is an amazing framework that I love to use called the design thinking process. And again, at any point, if you guys have questions, send them in the chat or just unmute yourself and let me know, and then we can talk through things. So the design thinking process is basically a 6-step framework, and is essentially a way to help you continually interact with your users throughout your design process. And so there are these 6 steps, 5, but kind of 6. So first is empathize, and this means empathize with your users and figure out what their needs are. And then define the problem and define what problems they're having and how you can help them. The third step is ideation, which is, for me, my favorite part. So this is where you brainstorm a bunch of ideas, and anything really goes at this point, and then you decide which one to move forward with. The fourth step is prototyping. So you build out a simple version of your idea, and then in the 5th step, you go test that idea with users. And then the 6th step is iteration. And basically what this means is you take the feedback that you got from your user testing and incorporate that into your design. And so by going through this process and repeating the testing and iteration process, you make sure that your product is really addressing user needs and actually makes sense to the users that are going to be interacting with it once your product is shipped. So another way I like to frame the design thinking process is in these 3 stages. So the first 2 steps is for understanding your users and really understanding their needs and what you are trying to do for them. And then the 3rd and 4th steps are about creation. So as a designer, this is where you're coming up with ideas, building things, designing things, drawing things, and this is really the creative part. And then the last 2 steps, I like to call them validation. And so this is where you're figuring out whether what you designed based on those user needs is actually applicable to the problem and can actually solve the problem that your users are having. And so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about each one of these steps. And then hopefully we can do a little activity after that. So step 1, empathize with your users. Like I said before, this is when you really want to put in the effort to talk to your users. So you want to understand the problems that your users are facing and what needs they have. And there are a ton of ways to do this. You can interview them when you talk to them face-to-face. You can do a survey if you want to get data from a lot of people. And that's just one of the few ways. There's actually a UX research methods workshop tomorrow if this sounds interesting to you. And I'm a designer, but I think user research is just so fun. So I would recommend that everybody checks that out. And research is such an important part of the design process. And the important thing here is that you don't want to start with a design idea. If you go in assuming you know what the problem is, you're not going to really be able to exercise your creative abilities and come up with a solution that really addresses those needs. So don't start with a solution in mind. Start with a question. Start by asking, what can I do? What do these users need? And what can I do to help them? So Nandita Gupta, who is my coworker at Mentra, is doing this research workshop tomorrow. So please go attend that. And then step 2, define user needs and goals. And so you can really do this well once you've talked to your users and figured out exactly what's going on. So define the problem and the needs based on what you heard from users. So these are the specifics of the problem. So what issues are they encountering? Why are they having those issues? What's going well? And what does our design need to do to solve these problems that they're having? So as an example, there's a project that I did in my first year in Georgia Tech's human-computer interaction program. So my team and I, we started with the prompt and the user group of stay-at-home parents. So this is basically a parent that stays at home to take care of their kids and doesn't work. And so before we did our user research, our team thought, oh, stay-at-home parents are going to want help socializing because they probably have a hard time seeing their friends if they're taking care of their kids. However, once we actually interviewed, I think we interviewed around 14 stay-at-home parents, we found out that they didn't really care about socializing, but the problem that they had was that they didn't have enough time to do their hobbies. And so that's what we ended up deciding on in this step 2, was that parents are having problems doing hobbies because they're tired from taking care of their kids all the time. It's housework and childcare take up all the time in their day. And they're just not really confident enough to find new places to go do their hobbies after they have kids. And so those 3 points were the specific user needs that we settled on, that we decided we were going to design for. And here I titled this Define User Needs and Design Goals. So I want to make a quick point that design goals are very different from design ideas. So we want to start with design goals so we know what our solution can be. And design goals are more characteristics rather than products themselves. So a design goal is something like easy to use, or portable, or easy to navigate. Whereas a design idea is like an app, or a VR system, or an Apple Watch app, or something like that. So in the stay-at-home parent example, one of our design goals was easy to use with one hand, because a lot of the parents we talked to had very young children, and if they were carrying their children in one arm, they couldn't use two arms to interact with whatever our solution was going to be. And so keeping those overarching characteristics in mind can also help you when you're brainstorming to come up with the actual solution idea that you want to solve the problem with. And then 3, ideation. So once you have those design goals set and you know what boxes your solution needs to tick, you can go ahead and start brainstorming. And like I said, so this is my favorite part of the design process. And this is just brainstorming solutions. So at this stage, the team just gets together and everyone just lays down every idea they have. And at this stage, no idea is a bad idea. We want to get everything down on paper and explore all of our alternatives before we settle on one and decide to move forward with it. And so once you decide on what you want to move forward with, this is when you start prototyping before your test. So build out your ideas, and they don't have to be fancy, and they don't have to look good. They can look like these sketches that we made when we were drawing toast, if you think that's applicable. So in this project I was talking about, we came up with 3 different solutions. So when we brainstormed, I think we came up with like 15 ideas, rapid fire. And then we picked 3 that we wanted to move forward with, that we would test with our users. And each of them was pretty different, but they still were able to hit those design goals that we had set in stage 2 of the process. And so when it comes to prototyping, like I said before, it doesn't need to be fancy. And you definitely shouldn't be coding at this point, unless you really have to. Essentially, the principle here is that if you test early with users when your design is at its most basic stages, it's really easy to make changes. If you coded your entire app and then took it to your users to test for the first time, and then realized that you needed to redo everything, that causes a lot of extra time, a lot of extra effort. And so we want to reduce the likelihood of that happening. So you can totally test with these types of prototypes with your users while you're going through the design process. And so then that validates the design decisions you're making, and it also saves time in terms of changing things later. And then you test. So keep your design goals in mind when you're testing your solution with users. And when I say testing, this can look like a lot of things. It can be as simple as saying, okay, here are 3 concepts we think could address your needs. Which one do you like the most? Why do you like it? It can be something like showing them a prototype that you made and then asking them to interact with it and asking them what they think, what was easy, what was hard, and what you can fix. And so once you've tested your prototype and collected that data, you want to do something with it. And so that's when you go back to your design and you update it based on the user feedback. So like you can kind of see on the slide, this can kind of be an endless process if you really want it to be. Usually 2 or 3 iterations will do the job and get your design to a good place and a very usable place. But no design is ever perfect. And I'm sure, I don't know what your guys' creative backgrounds are, or if you're familiar with like doing art or anything, especially in the design process, you can always add more and change more. And so if you have the time to do extra testing and extra iterations, your product will only get that much better, So no amount of iterations is really too many, is what I like to say, because there's always something to improve. And so, like I said before, by consistently collecting this user feedback and incorporating it into your design, you're ensuring that your product is usable, you're ensuring that it's satisfactory, and you're ensuring that it actually addresses the things your users need. And that's why it's so good to just ask them, You don't need to do any guesswork as a designer if you can go to your users and put your design down in front of them and watch them use it, and then update it to make it better for the next iteration. So that's kind of an overview of the general design process. And I'm now going to take a few minutes to go over a case study of a project that I did, so that you guys can kind of see this process in real life, and also how you can incorporate accessibility into this design process. But before I talk about the case study, does anyone have any questions? You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I'd be happy to answer anything. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no questions for now. But again, anytime you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me. Cool. So, yep, like I said before, I'm going to kind of walk you through a case study that I went through with the team for accessible online food ordering. And I'm going to walk through each step of that 6-step design thinking process. So, this is a project that I did in school with a team of classmates. And basically the way it worked was, there's a local sandwich franchise in Atlanta, which is where I am. And so this company came to our class and asked my team, me and 3 other people, they said, we have this restaurant called Schlotzsky's. It's a silly name, but here we are. There we were. And so they asked us, we want you to redesign our online ordering flow so that people can use it more easily and it can be more accessible. And so with that prompt in mind, we went through the design thinking process to really redefine this ordering flow, make it more usable. We made it look a little bit better, and we also made sure that it was accessible for people with visual impairments. So our first step, empathizing with our users. So basically what we did here was we took the existing online ordering flow and we put it in front of a bunch of users. So we watched them go through the flow and order a sandwich. We interviewed them. We asked them, what did you like about that process? What did you not like? And we also mapped out all the steps in the process to figure out where users were commonly having issues. And so if multiple users were having issues in the same place, we realized that, okay, that's something that we need to address. We then embarked on some data analysis. And so you can kind of see a picture here. This is one method we use where we group similar user feedback. And so after analyzing all of those interviews that we did, we realized we needed to improve the navigation on the online ordering website. We needed to increase compatibility with assistive technology. And so these are things like screen readers and other assistive technology that people with visual impairments use. And we also realized we needed to redesign the pages so that there was less information, because a lot of the users were overwhelmed with all of the options that were being presented to them during this online ordering process. And kind of as a way to, quantify that, we ended up creating this artifact called a user journey. And basically, you guys can see here that, give me one second. Yes, okay, you guys can see here that it kind of charts a user's experience through the online ordering flow. And this is a really, really good visual for me as a designer to understand where things are going wrong in the process and what steps already exist. Okay, so once we defined our problem and defined our goals, we started ideating. And so you can see in the picture, we have a ton of ideas there. But the ones that we decided to move forward with were 1, a revamped website, or 2, a chatbot, or 3, a voice interface that could be used on Alexa or Google Home. And so we designed on those 3 approaches, and our goal now was to ask the users which ones they would prefer. And so we created some very fast prototypes. And as you can see here, these aren't fancy. So we had our revamped website, very, very basic design, no colors, no images or anything. We had a chatbot that we designed a script for. And then we also had a voice interface, and you can see here that we also designed a script for that. So the green is the voice of the user, and then the blue would be what the voice interface says. And so as you can see here, none of these required any coding on our end. And we tested them with users. And just as some background, so the way we tested each concept, the revamped website was pretty easy to do. We just designed that in Sketch, which is kind of like an Adobe Illustrator. I don't know if you guys know what Sketch is, but it's kind of a software which designers can use to build out prototypes that aren't necessarily functional, and buttons don't really work and things like that. So with the chatbot, the way we tested that was actually I pretended to be a chatbot on Facebook Messenger, and then the user would type to me, and then I would present them with the options, and I was sitting in the other room typing these answers to them, pretending to be a chatbot. And then the way we tested the voice interface was pretty similar. So basically, 2 of my team members sat in a room with the user, and then one of the team members was in another room on the phone saying the answers that the voice interface would say. So like I said before, prototypes do not have to be sleek. They don't have to look great. They just gotta get the job done. And because what we wanted to know was which concept users preferred, these methods did the job. And people ended up really liking the website concept. So we decided to move forward with that. And while we were testing these concepts, we did get some user feedback about the website. And so we found out that users wanted to see prices as soon as possible, and they also wanted a favorite section which saves past orders. We also got some positive feedback, which is also very important, so that we knew what we shouldn't change. And as you can see, these pictures on the side, we built out our very basic prototype that we had into a more usable, designable interface. And again, none of this was touched with any code or anything yet. This is purely just designers drawing things out in our software. And so once we had that kind of higher fidelity version, we did another round of testing, and this time with accessibility experts to make sure that our prototype was usable with assistive technology, and with UX experts and with users to make sure that the information architecture was solid, to make sure it looked okay, to make sure that it was easy to navigate and easy to actually order food on this design that we made. So after that round of testing, we did another round of iteration where we incorporated recommended by our users and by our experts. And then we were finally able to present our final design to focus brands who were the owners of this restaurant, and basically showed them how we improved their website. And so that's kind of a case study that I went through with my team and how we went through that process ourselves. And keep in mind here, when I say we tested with users, I mean we tested with all kinds of users. And one of our goals that the company gave us was to make sure that it was accessible. And so at every stage of user interaction, the first step when we were empathizing, in the last steps when we were testing, we made sure to talk to users who did use assistive technology and users who did have visual impairments to really make sure that our website was going to work with them. and work for them. And so we tested with users with visual impairments and users without to make sure that our design was usable by people of all types of differing abilities. And on that note, I know this is an accessibility-focused hackathon, so I did want to say this. So when it comes to inclusive design and disability, we as designers, and really anyone, should not view disability as something that someone is born with. So humans aren't born with disabilities, humans are just born with differing abilities. But disability occurs when the environment around us is not designed for our different abilities. And so even if you don't identify as someone with a disability, we all experience temporary disabilities every now and again. So when you're walking on the street on a sunny day and it's hard to see the screen on your phone, that's a temporary disability. Or when we're carrying groceries in one hand and trying to use an app in the other hand, that's a temporary disability. And this even happens in the physical environment around us, right? So let's say that there's an apartment building and the door to the apartment building is really, really hard to open, and it takes a lot of strength to open this door. So let's say one of the apartment building members has arthritis. Let's say they're old, they have arthritis, they're not going to be able to open the door. Or let's say another member of that building broke their arm recently, and so they're only able to use one of their arms to open the door. They would have trouble with that. But then let's say I don't have arthritis and I haven't broken either of my arms, but let's say I'm collecting a package. So I got this huge box in the mail, and now I need to go back inside my building. So I can only use one of my arms to open the door. So that's a temporary disability. And so when we're designing for inclusion and when we're designing for accessibility, we want to think about users who have traditional quote unquote disabilities, but we also want to consider all of the contexts in which people will use what we design. Are they going to be using it outside where it's sunny? Are they going to be using our design when they're holding a child in one of their arms? So that's just something to keep in mind as you go through this design process at this hackathon, but really when you're designing anything. And so that's kind of my spiel about the design thinking process. And now I have an activity for you guys. But before we get into that, do you guys have any questions for me about the design thinking process, about my process, or even how you can incorporate any of these into your project for the hackathon? I'm going to stop sharing for 2 seconds, and you guys can ask any questions in the chat or even just like comments that you have. Okay, well, if you have any questions, please do let me know. So, okay, let me share my screen again, and then I'm going to kind of tell you guys about this activity that we're going to be doing. And it is going to require you to pair up, but we will get into the details about that very soon. And we're going to make it work. Okay, so the activity that I planned has to do with the ideation stage of that design thinking process. So basically, what we're going to do is you guys are going to partner up with someone else who's in this workshop. And you can chat or video call with them on the Discord. And so if you want, you can even leave this Google Meet and then come back when you're done with the activity. So we can assign partners in a second, or you can just choose to partner up. But basically, I've prepared 3 user prompts. And so you can choose one of those prompts and then go through the brainstorming process. So take 10 minutes to brainstorm potential design ideas and solutions really fast and come up with a lot of ideas. And then choose one of those solutions and expand on it. So this means figure out what features it would have and why it would have those features and how it affects the user. And you can describe this in words, or you can even sketch if you want, and then share your sketch. And then once we're all done with that, probably not 20 minutes, probably 15 minutes, we're going to come back and kind of share our work with the group. So let me walk you guys quickly through the kind of user scenarios I presented. So think of it this way. So I've done the understanding part of the design thinking process for you guys, and you guys get to go on with the brainstorming and the ideation. So user prompt number 1 is Gerald Watkins, and he loves to go to the movie theater with his grandsons. However, he often has to stand in lines to get the tickets or to get snacks, or even waiting outside to get to the actual theater. And he has bad knees, and so all of this standing is really painful for him. So think up a solution that can make Gerald's experience at the movie theater a little bit easier. And some design goals in mind. Gerald has so Gerald doesn't feel comfortable with complicated technology. So keep that in mind. The solution should be portable if it's being used at a movie theater, and it should be quick to use because he has to focus on his grandkids. User prompt number 2 is a teacher. So Michelle is a high school teacher that uses a wheelchair. And so when she's giving her class activities to do, she likes to roam around the room and ask the students if they need help or to check in on them. However, in her classroom, she can't get through the desks easily because there isn't that much space and she's in a wheelchair. So design a solution for Michelle to be able to check up on her students while they're working. And then the third prompt is actually for 2 users. So Mila and Jason are a couple, and they love to travel, and they love to try new foods in all of the countries that they travel in. But the problem is, Jason is a very, very strict vegetarian, while Mila loves to eat meat. And so their problem is that they want to find a restaurant in these foreign countries that can cater to both of their needs. And as you can see, there are some design goals here as well. And so these are the 3 user prompts. And I am going to send you guys the link for these instructions. And so when it comes to partnering up, I guess it's going to assign partners based on your names. So I just sent the link for the instructions, and I'm just going to type in the names of the groups and then contact each other in Discord on the chat. And then please be back here. Let's cut it in half. So take about 10 minutes to do this whole thing, and then we're going to come back and kind of talk through what you guys discussed. And then I see we have an odd number of participants. So Sheila, you and I can be partners. So please contact me on Discord. Okay, and again, let me know if you have any questions. You can contact me on Discord. You can just type in the chat here. And yeah, we can get started. Please let me know if you guys are good with this. Just put like a thumbs up in the chat or be like, yeah, we're all good or something. So I get some feedback from you guys. And if you guys have any issues contacting your partner or something, let me know and we'll figure something out. So we're going to take about like 5 or 6 more minutes. Okay, so when you guys are good to go, just send a message in the chat and we can start sharing ideas if you guys are comfortable with it. Yeah, whether you did it with a partner or just by yourself, either one is fine. Just let me know in the chat when you're good to go. Okay, it has now been 10 minutes. So if anybody wants to share any thoughts that they had, whether you're done, whether you're not done, you can just unmute yourself and we can talk through it. And then we are going to wrap up very quickly. I'm going to leave the stage open for one more minute if people are feeling bold and want to share. But then if not, we're going to wrap up. Okay, no worries. But I think this is still a valuable exercise. So even if you're doing it on your own or with a partner, I think it's still good to go through. So I guess we will wrap up now. I just want to leave you guys with some quick tips about inclusive and accessible design that hopefully you will be able to use during the hackathon. So kind of like what I was talking before, when you have to think about different human abilities and also context of use, if you are designing specifically for accessibility, make sure you know what types of assistive technology your user group might be using. These are things like screen readers, or maybe your user group uses hearing aids or something like that. So you always want to make sure that you know what to expect. Second, when you're designing, I like to keep this principle in mind. Who would not be able to use this? And how can I fix it to make it work for them? And your design is never going to work for everyone. But it should be as usable for as many people as possible. And that should be one of your goals. And then the third one, like we've been talking about before, do your research. So talk to your users. And if you can't talk to them, look online. See if you can find information about your users, if there are videos, or if there's even like a forum on the internet where your users like talk to each other. Any research is better than no research. And I know in like a hackathon format, it's hard to like go out and talk to your users, but there are plenty of ways that you can still do that research. And in terms of inclusive UX and accessible UX, there is a PDF of a presentation that I gave a while ago. But basically, it just lays out some really, really basic inclusive design principles. So it essentially gives you some guidelines on how to make your UI accessible, and the principles that you want to keep in mind. And so that is here. Now I'm going to put that also in the chat. But let's see the chat. Okay. But other than that, yeah, that's kind of everything for me. So if you guys want, thanks for staying here for this whole hour. If you have any questions about UX design, UI design, or you just want to keep in touch or like talk about something, please feel free to reach out. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can email me, or you can go to my website if you want to see more of my work. Or you can even like chat me in the Discord if you have any questions during the hackathon. But yeah, that's everything. So thanks, guys. I hope this was helpful. Yeah, no problem. Cool. Go forth and design and make some good stuff. Thanks.